So as a result of the lack of security within WEP, what they decided to do was to add an additional layer to try and make the 24-bit initialization vector larger. Okay. So they had this thing called TKIP, which is a temporal key integrity protocol, and it attempted to improve the security of the protocol. The problem with this, however, was the initialization vector, even though it was increased, you still had this major flaw with the baseline for the 24-bit initialization vector. As a result of that, it's inherently insecure as well. And so they wind up figuring out after they deployed this, not very long afterwards, that they wind up having a significant issue and they needed to redesign it. Okay, so for the exam, just recognize the levels. Okay, WEP is the first one that was introduced, the worst. WPA and WPA2, generally pretty easy to keep track of those. Okay, WPA2. So now this one was different because not only did it change the mechanisms for encryption, it actually also used a very large 128-bit encryption for what's called CCMP, or Cipher Block Chaining Message Authentication Code Protocol. Okay, say that fast 5 times. All right. I actually have a picture here from one of the old access points where you can select each one of the different types of security for those routers.
Was it the mixed one or was it personal?
What do you mean?
It's Web2, and there's 2 of them. There's the mixed and there's the personal. Which one is it?
So the one that I selected there, I think, is mixed, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they both there's differences between the two, but
they don't matter. Okay, sounds good.
I actually don't know for that particular router what the main differences are between the two.
Yeah, no
Okay.
problem.
Just as there's transport layer security in the OSI model, remember we had this discussion about browsers and being able to do stuff like SSL, okay, secure socket layer. The follow-on to SSL is TLS, right? Transport layer security. And what's interesting about that is the same methods of trying to secure like a Ethernet-enabled network are similar to the way in which you would do things on the wireless side as well. Okay, this is just a basic setup. I think everybody is familiar with that. You'll notice that they have these like old antennas with really old access cards. I couldn't find a more modern picture, so I thought that was kind of funny to put it in there. All right. Okay, from a pragmatic standpoint, there's actually a number of sites that you can go onto in order to look at access points throughout the world. And so what they'll do is they'll war drive throughout a place and then map those and then try and collect all that information across the planet in order to see where those access points are. And what's really interesting is even though some of the data points are older, if you go through a certain location and you do a war drive, it's pretty interesting kind of how they match up. Like some of those access points stay there and never change. So a couple of different ones. I would definitely recommend going out to some of the sites and just kind of like looking around your neighborhood or seeing if they've got your access point on there or whatever. It's pretty neat.
How many of those are in the ocean?
So all those red dots, all those blue dots are in the ocean. Yep. So there's probably a wide variety. This is San Francisco here, and that's San Francisco Bay. There's probably a set of reasons why that is. Maybe somebody's on a boat, and at that particular point in time, they had their access point for their computer on the ship or something. There's a lot of reasons why that occurred. So it's just kind of a fun thing to kind of look at and figure it out.
Yeah, you can clearly see on the other side across the bridge that there's almost nothing.
Right. Yeah, in comparison, absolutely. Okay. But Alcatraz, you can actually see there's a lot of things on there. Okay. Okay. One thing to keep in mind in terms of wireless access is being able to use high power antennas in order to communicate between access points. You should be familiar with the term Yagi, which is one of the directional antennas that's used. And essentially that's a large or high gain antenna that allows you to communicate over long distances. In addition to our standard communication between different entities over wireless, you can also do VPN like you would over Ethernet. So it shouldn't be too out of the ordinary to see, hey, look, once I get onto the wireless network, I can go ahead and use my VPN in order to connect. All right, so pretty straightforward.